I should shut up, is what you're saying.
I'm just think it's I think it's sort of rude, like you make a point and then you shut off your sound like you don't want somebody to refute your point. That's kind of what it seems like.
Can we please lay the question to rest? Who was the nerd next to the
No, no,
good-looking
no,
guy?
no. That's going to remain a
I
mystery.
think it's sort of rude, like
Oh
you make a
shit.
point and then you shut off
I
your
did not
sound
just
like
say
you
that
don't
on the
want somebody
live
to
stream.
refute your
Hang
point.
on. All right.
It's
Sorry, guys. I had to turn off my sound because it was. Anyway, this is our highly professional second live stream here for Storm Wars. I imagine that you're all sitting in the chat thinking, "Wow, this isn't even worth the 10 gems I'm going to win in trivia." Just kidding. Anyway, so uh, this is a.
So what's on the agenda today,
Oh, for
George?
goodness sake, I didn't even get a chance to introduce us. Anyhow, uh, my name is George. I also known as Sir Valamont. Over on the other side of the screen over there, you'll see JP, also known as Camson. We are
Boom.
boom indeed. We are we are card game developers. In my case, I'm providing some development help on Storm Wars. In JP's case, he's providing player and assistant live stream help, I guess. Not really
You could call it comic
comic relief,
relief
right?
and
He's the nerd to
administrative
my good-looking
assistance.
guy. Anyway, so we are clearly. So anyhow, we are going to be doing a stream today on heroes and deck strategy. Actually, why don't I pull the game up for you? And just talking about how different heroes match up against other heroes. And we will, during the course of the stream, be giving a couple of trivia questions, which, if you answer correctly in the stream, will net you a prize. I think the way we're going to do it is we're going to give a prize to the first two people who answer any given question correctly. JP is going to be,
Do we count as people that can answer
if you
correctly?
answer a question, you will be banned.
Come on.
You are not
I need
eligible.
gems.
For goodness sake,
I need gems
you
too.
got to be kidding me. Uh, you can ignore that. So I think that the prizes that I want to give out today is a pile of gold, a pile of gems, and a pile of glowstones. I think those are going to be the three prizes. We may do things in that order. Actually, we may do the gems last because they're kind of the best. The questions are going to be trivia questions about the game. And hope you guys just type into the Twitch channel as soon as you can. Let me say one thing, which is that it really, really helps us if you create a Twitch account and if you follow this channel, because the more people, the more followers we have, that gets advertised on our Twitch channel anytime we tell people we're going to live stream. And later on, we're going to be actually advertising through Twitch, hoping to get a lot more players. Twitch is a great way to get tons of gamers on different platforms. As you know, as some of you might know, we're going to be going to mobile soon, starting with Android. And once we have a lot of Twitch followers, that advertising will be much more effective. So you really, really help us by following. And we used to have rules in the past, JP and I, when we did live streams, that you could only win prizes if you were a follower and if you have an account. And I don't think we're going to implement that today just because it's sort of a pain in the neck. So, you can watch for free if you want to, but we'd appreciate it if you'd follow the channel. Uh,
Yeah, and I'll just add to that that we're trying to set up something where in a few weeks from now, after we've done a couple more of these, just to try and get a few more people following, like George said, we'll try and have a bigger kind of Twitch live stream where we'll try to promote it, try to get, if we can, on the front page of Twitch and have like a big old thing. So, hopefully you can look forward to that as soon as we get that set up.
Sorry. I should not have taken a sip of coffee just then. Woo!
You okay?
I'm fine. Yes, a good point. We'll be going for some pretty heavy duty live streaming. Wouldn't it be great if I couldn't talk for the rest of the stream? Anyway, let's say right here at the front end we start with a trivia question and give people some prizes. Here,
All right, go
okay,
for it,
so
George.
here,
I'll be the first to admit I don't know the answers
oh,
to the
that's all right.
questions because I don't know the
That's all
questions.
right. Let me give you a little hint though, everybody. And let me actually first start by saying how we're going to do this. So I'll ask the question. First person, first two people to put the correct answer into the Twitch, just into the chat, will win the prize. We will collect your name during the Twitch stream, and then afterwards you can tell us what your username is, and we'll make sure it gets to your account. It doesn't matter what platform you play on; it'll work for anybody. Let me say one other thing though, which is that we do have some resources for you. I will open one of them up right now to show it to you. It's called the SWAG, SWAG, the Storm Wars Analytics Guide, and this is something you can find from our Congregate site. It's pretty easy to get to, and it has stats on all of the cards in our game. The questions I'm about to ask are trivia questions. I'll just let you know that having the swag open might help you figuring these things out.
You just gave people a cheat
Well, of
sheet.
course, I give people a cheat sheet. I want people to use the cheat sheet because when people think about the stats and the metagame of Storm Wars, they are going to, I think, appreciate the game a little bit more. Anyhow,
Okay.
so again, this is a Storm Wars live stream. We're about to get into the game. We're going to start with a trivia question, and then we're going to start talking about game stuff. And once we're into the game stuff, we will occasionally give you more trivia questions, hoping that you're still watching.
All right. So George, what is it? This like first person or first two people or what is it?
Let's
Who
say
wins?
that the first two people to answer this correctly, in fact, let's say the first three people to answer this correctly will get 10,000 gold added to their account each. That's a pretty good prize, I think, right? That's basically a free pack of cards.
That's basically like a free rare plus a few other things.
Okay, here we go. So here's the trivia question. Drum roll, please. Actually, no drum roll. The trivia question is name in the chat. Name the only faction in Storm Wars that does not have a cavalry unit. Cue Jeopardy music. If I had really prepared, I would have had Jeopardy music
Boom.
ready. You know, the boom doesn't work when you're on mute, and you have to remember to unmute yourself to boom. It's like a delayed boom.
Sorry.
Oh,
Boom.
great. Given the delay, I'm sure we're going to start seeing answers right now. I can tell you the answer was dark elves. I'm pretty sure people will have said that twice before you actually hear me say that. If not, then I just gave it away.
Okay, so wait. We got the first three people are Space Lizard, 420, Santino Man, and Infalibi.
Yeah, that's infallible.
Those are the
Infallible.
three winners.
Congrats to you guys. You will all get 10,000 gold added to your account for your knowledge. We will follow this trivia question later in the stream with trivia questions for gems and glowstones. Please stay tuned. In the meantime, we're going to talk about some decks here. So here's what I want to do with this stream. Everybody talks about different deck strategies being related to heroes in Storm Wars. I will show you very quickly that the way this works is when you fight a battle in this game, and pardon me if you guys already know this, you basically choose your deck. We have hotkeys that let you choose your deck. You can see on the screen here, as I press different keys, my different decks come up. And what you're going to want to do is choose the deck based on what your opponent's hero is. And you'll always see a little snapshot here of what your opponent's hero is going to be. So here in the campaign mode, where I'm in the PvE version of the game, as you can see, where you can play all different quests and so on, I'm going to fight an opponent here in the Colosseum. It looks like he's using Sedalis, who is an elf that uses magic. So I'm going to use an anti-magic deck. Let me actually show you that deck before I start using it. And I'll hop over here into my army screen. Just one example from many. JP, what do you think about anti-magic?
Since yes, I was going to ask you, since this is the kind of the focus of the discussion is heroes. One question for you, George, is to what extent do you think choosing the right hero has an effect on the outcome versus choosing the right kind of deck composition within the hero?
Well, it's obviously both, but hero is the biggest part of it. And the reason for that is twofold. First,
You think so?
oh, it is
Really?
the biggest part of it. I mean, basically the hero, you have to think of the hero as an effect that exists for the entire battle, right? I mean, the hero doesn't go away. It doesn't get killed until the end of the battle. So if the hero is attacking every turn, you have an extra attacker every turn. If the hero is using some kind of effect, that effect's happening every turn. So what's interesting also is that because
George, can you view in view mode? Because I think people want to see the whole of that deck that you're using.
oh yeah, good idea, guys. So the thing you have to realize in a game like this is that what can sometimes happen in a card game is snowballing. And snowballing is basically where one player has an advantage, and because that player has an advantage, the player continues to have an advantage. One of the cool things about Storm Wars, and one of the reasons we have our heroes very strong, is because if one player has a distinct advantage, the hero, being so strong against a full field when the hero has a blank field, actually has the ability to turn the tide by himself. Often because when you don't have any targets on your side, the opponent's hero is somewhat useless, can't really do very much, depending on the hero. So snowballing is sort of mechanically countered by this hero concept, and I think that's great because snowballing is one of the biggest problems in many competing games. So in this deck, I'm using a Mariel. She's a summoner. She gets extra cards regularly, extra units. And you can see that most of the units in this deck have some kind of resistance to magic or some kind of resistance in general. So a Dawn Guard is an example of a special card that you get from crew rewards, which are like our guilds. It has Magic Shield. I have a bunch of Seela Stormcaller, which is a card from the regular set that has Magic Shield. I even have a bunch of Green Dragons that have Magic Shield. And then I have other cards that are just generally durable, whether it's, cards that are like Alistair, which is a card that grants armor to units, or whether it's Lord Fax, which guards its neighbors. I even have Manivores in this deck, which drain magic abilities from opponents. So this is really an anti-magic deck, and we can see this in practice. I just want to show you how it actually works. A lot of the time,
So George, just a trivia question from the
trivia
chat.
from the chat.
Is it possible to have Walmarts if there are no targets?
Is it possible to have Walmarts if there are no targets? What? Oh boy. Yeah, I didn't even get that at first. That's really funny.
So you can thank Montague
Yeah,
for that little gem.
that's really
That little
great.
gem.
Yeah, that's the type of humor that really sears.
Oh!
Thank you for unmuting yourself to laugh. Okay, so let's try using this deck.
I think it would just be too weird to have me silently laughing.
You would look a little weird. You are very washed out. I don't know what's up with your computer today. Actually, if you guys want to understand what's happening, JP forgot his headset, and so that's why his sound is so screwed up. So you can see this intense battle, which I hope I don't lose, thus disproving the utility of my entire deck. But basically, because Sidalis is throwing magic at me, some of my cards are supposed to be resisting it. Obviously, I'm not drawing any cards that are doing well. But anyway, as you can see, the general speed of my deck and general quality of my cards also helped win that one. And so on and so forth. So even with some of the more popular heroes you're going to find when you're fighting opponents like Carr, like Anasi, like Luther, there are hard counters for each of those heroes. And I'd like to show you today basically how I counter those heroes because I think it's useful.
Oh, so this is the Sir Valmont's secret sauce, right?
Well, I'm not sure that a lot of this information is that secret to top players. I think that they actually probably know better than I do at this point, but I think it will help the average player for sure, especially because some of those heroes can be frustrating to play against. So let's take a look quickly at the heroes that exist. And I'd like to just mention that we're about to add 6 new heroes to the game and probably.
What? I didn't know that.
Wow, did you just have an aneurysm? Are you okay? My God.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
And yeah, so that's probably going to come in, I don't know, 10 days. Don't quote me on that. But so you can see how many we have here just scrolling to the right. Every single hero has different mechanics that happen every turn. You build different decks based on whom you're using. And I truly, honestly did pay for all of these heroes with gems on my account. I did not cheat to get them as a dev. But it's kind of fun to choose what heroes you're going to unlock and what heroes you're going to level up. It does affect your deck building. You can see here some of the more effective recent heroes that have been added. Luther here is a guy with a great shielding ability. We'll talk about fighting him. And Carr over here is a spider lord that has a lot of damage and corrosion. We'll talk about fighting him too. Let's hop into the arena and see what sort of opponents I can get.
I hear there's this really competitive player called Kamsin.
Really competitive?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Really competitive.
Like he gets mad at his computer. He's really competitive. Look at this. Luther and Carr sitting in front of me ready to be attacked. So let me talk to you about my Luther deck here. Luther's big disadvantage is that he's slow, in the sense that he doesn't do a lot of damage per turn. And what you want to do is you want to take advantage of that with a fast rush kind of a deck. One other thing that you want to take advantage of is a spell called Bounce. Let me show you my anti-Luther deck here. A lot of cards.
And then I'll say what my anti-Luther deck is, which is like not effective all the time. So take it with a grain of salt.
I always thought you were going to make a joke on Superman, which is a pretty good anti-Luther in general, but that's not in the game. So my anti-Luther deck has 4 cards in it. It's again a Mariel because she gets the extra boost of summoned creatures every other turn. It has rabbits in it, dire rabbits, which are very fast and grow. It has a couple high elf scouts. I just threw them in there because they're really fast. Uh, and I have bounce and I have singularity, which are two spells. Bounce takes an opponent's creature and puts it back into his deck, essentially into his staging area, knocks him out of play. Singularity destroys everything on the board, including your own stuff, and lets you start over. Now, when you have a rush deck and you're fighting against a slow deck, you want to reset the board as much as possible because the early game advantage is in your favor. So that's why I throw Singularity into this deck. So let's see how effective it is against Luther.
Could you do like a Kiri rush deck if you wanted to with Singularity?
You could do a Curie Rush deck with Singularity. You could do a Malik Rush deck with Singularity. That's another fast hero. I've even done rush decks with Zoo with Singularity, so it just depends on what you're after. Actually, I've even done Singularity with Luther before with very fast cards. Luther himself, even though he's slow, because he protects a card every turn with an Aegis, which is more or less an invincible shield, with some exceptions. It's good sometimes to have a very fast, hard-hitting set of cards come out that are also protected. They can do a lot of damage, so we can talk about that. But I'm selecting deck number 8. That's the one I just showed you, and I'm fighting Nenthos, who is another player in his Luther deck. After we talk about this a little more, maybe we'll go into another trivia question. What say you, JP? Are you ready to hand out more prizes?
I say aye.
I see. Are you commanding a camel to go backwards?
Aye.
No, I, I think that's I. Actually, I think you say I, or I, depending on how fast you want the camel to go. You don't have a response
Yeah,
for
here's
that?
a fun little. No, I don't. But like, here's a fun little trivia while your battle
Did anyone
pans
see
out.
how completely ridiculous and one-sided that was?
If you if you forfeit
Let's try against a
at the
really strong
end,
player in just SCX.
fine. I'll say this. I'll say this
Go
another
ahead. If
time.
you forfeit, what?
No, so if you're just grinding and you forfeit at the end, you can double forfeit, and in your replay, if you hit replay, it'll replay the fight at like double speed. It's a neat little
Yeah,
bug.
it's so great when you tell our players how to cheat. Anything else you want to?
It's not cheating. It's just like a little bug for
No,
PVE grinding. If
yeah,
you
no, that's
lose,
true. I'm aware of that actually, and we don't even. I don't even think we really know what's causing that, but it doesn't have very high priority to get fixed because it's not a big deal. But yeah, I've done that
yeah,
before by
it's
accident.
only applicable for PVE anyways.
So you can see what's happened here is I've taken the opponent's hit points down pretty aggressively, but because I'm depending on a rush deck, my cards are actually weaker than his. So he has now gotten his cards out, and unfortunately had some very strong cards, and he actually killed me. But I was about to use a singularity. You saw it just about to hit the board in my hand there, and if I had successfully executed the singularity, I would have won that fight because it would have removed all of his slow cards and my fast cards would have come out again and killed the last 3 hit points off of him. So you can lose with a counter deck. What you want to do is build something that wins most of the time. Amariel is another example of a hero that you can counter, even though she's very strong. The two decks I've just shown you both used Amariel, so we can talk about how to beat Amariel. But before we do that, let's.
Before we do that, one great suggestion in chat is extra high speed. Make it standard. What do you think about
I
that,
think
George?
that we could definitely have a very super high standard, fast, high speed. All you have to do is give us your credit card, and it will cost $10 a minute. I'm kidding. It's not a bad suggestion, and we'll. Um, what I'll say in general is that Storm is a one-man team, and he has done some incredible things. I mean, frankly, he's built this game from scratch, and we should all be impressed by that. It's impressive. What can I say? But uh, certain things like UI advantages, UX improvements, we will get to those things, but I think that we'll get to those things a little bit after some of the most important pressing content, like the fact that we have to go to mobile first, the fact that there's actually an expansion in the works for a little bit later on, and so on. So until we have a little bit of a larger team, certain things are going to be put off, but definitely will be redoing some UX and redoing some design and improving user experience as we go along. And that's a very good suggestion because it's a casual game, and I know people want to get through battles quickly. So it totally fair game, and by all means, you should be talking to me or Storm or anyone or JP in chat about these things so they're on our radar. But let's do a trivia question.
Let's do it.
You guys ready for a trivia question? This trivia question is going to award the first 3 people that answer correctly. I'm going to give 5 glowstones to each of you. Glowstones are hard to get items. They're worth gems. You can actually cash them in for gems if you want to, although I recommend you hang on to them. So this is a pretty decent prize. The trivia question is, type it into the chat. What is
Wait. How many people? How
Top
many
3
people are going to
people.
be winning this? It's the first.
Top 3
Top
people.
3. Okay. Got it.
Okay, are we ready? Get your fingers ready. The trivia question is, what is the only unit in the game that has both the skills Pierce and Wound? Boo, 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 boo. All right, I'm not going to sing the Jeopardy music. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over here back into my decks, and I'm going to access the deck that is anti-Amariel. I will show that to you. Let's go into my army screen here. JP, do you have a thought on this trivia question? Do you know what it could be?
Well, people have started answering, so I think you need to
The answer
say,
is,
well,
in fact, Hippias. It is a Atlantean card, which is a cavalry. I'll pull it up on the screen here. Oops. That is the answer to our question. As you can see, it has both Pierce and
okay.
Wound.
So the first 3 correct answers are, or the people that answered correctly are Donkey Donk, Donkey Donk, Captain Thunderwalker, and Nabosi 84.
Yeah, Nabo is one of our veteran players. I don't totally recognize the other names, but that might be because you don't speak English and couldn't pronounce them properly. So I guess congratulations to whoever you are. In any event, this is my anti-Mariel deck. Congratulations to you guys. We will have a third trivia question for gems in a few minutes. At the moment, I'm showing you my anti-Amariel deck. Remember that Amariel is a summoner, so she gets all those extra cards every other turn. And what I have done here is I've created a deck using the hero Anasi. Anasi is a Spider Lord that hits 3 enemy units with a fairly strong attack and the poison status. Now, none of the elementals that Amariel summons are immune to poison. Only one of them has a shield against the damage of Anasi, but it's not a strong enough shield that it's really going to protect against this guy. And so, quite frankly, it's a fairly effective tactic for removing lots of small units. This is an area of effect damaging hero, and correspondingly, I have a bunch of cards in here that have some resistance to magic because elementals use magic. So I have Sela and the Green Dragon again that you may recall from a prior deck, and I generally have very, very fast, strong cards. Doesn't matter if they're survivable, doesn't matter if they have good skill sets, they just need to be strong and fast. So Ambusher is a typical card for that. You can see I have some Dire Rabbits in here, and you can see I have Niven Stoutbow, who's probably my favorite card. He's an elf that has a dual attack, he snipes enemies, so on and so forth. So let's see how effective this deck is against Amariel. Now, one thing I'll mention is that I don't actually currently have a counterspell in this deck, but I do often put a counterspell in an anti-Amariel deck because Amariel decks, as we saw earlier, like to use Singularity, and I like to counter it.
So is your assumption, George, that the Amariel deck that you're going to go up against is going to have a lot of small creatures because it's going to be a rush deck? That's basically your premise?
It's mostly the case that, and you might notice that I called my deck Dim Sum, as in she's a summoner and I'm going to dim her chances. Anyway, yeah, you don't have to roll your eyes quite so hard. Yeah, I mean, it's not so much that I know what the makeup of the deck is going to be. It's that I already know what the hero's ability is, and the hero's ability is the most important ability in the deck. So there are going to be a lot of small creatures. I'm going to want to counter that. It frankly doesn't matter what the rest of her deck is. If the player is using slow, heavy cards alongside Amariel, he's not going to have a lot of good deck synergy anyway because Amariel's other cards are not slow and heavy. So you kind of have to just play against a hero. Did you see how quickly that happened, by the way? I completely crushed that match. Incidentally, I would crush my own decks if I were to play against them using these strategies. Okay, so it looks like there are a lot of cars in the arena here now, and that's probably another guy that we want to learn how to fight against because he's a fairly strong and difficult to fight opponent.
I definitely want to learn how to fight cars. Oh, by the way, because we already covered Luther, what I do against Luther, and it works some of the time. I don't have like amazing cards yet, so that has a bit of a role. But one thing that I find is quite effective a lot of the times is using Pavok, because the debuff goes through the Aegis, even though the
Fair
damage doesn't.
enough. Yeah.
So that's actually one way of getting around one of his, core and quite strong abilities is to use a hero that actually ignores that,
Fair
because
point.
it's not a damage based
It is not a
effect.
damage-based effect, and those tend to be good against heroes that will stop damage-based effects. So here is Pavok, another of the Spider Lords, and as JP says, has an ability that doesn't depend on, it's not damage, so it won't be affected by a shield. Essentially, this just drains the attack power of a bunch of creatures every turn and damages them, incidentally. So she's a
Yeah, it does damage, but the effect. So even if the effect isn't contingent on the
exactly.
damage, which is unlike I think some other. I don't know if Kar and Nasi. I think it is contingent. So if the poison or the whatever it
Corrosion.
is doesn't, yeah, strike, then the effect doesn't
And
activate.
Gorm
Am
as
I
well,
am I
who sets
correct?
things on fire. You're absolutely right. In
Right, right.
general, in this game, if you block damage, a damaging effect that carries a debuff, the debuff is prevented. So that's a very good way to prevent being debuffed. Anyhow, this is a Nasi, this deck. I'm going to show you view again here. This is, oh, I beg your pardon. That's not what I wanted to show you. I'm going to show you this instead. This is a Luther deck. Now I'm using Luther. This is, for the moment, one of my anti-car decks, and I'm trying to show you a bunch of different ways of doing this. This is actually a Luther deck that contains Singularity, as you see. I was speaking of that before, but the main thing to focus on in this deck are the first three cards. I have a Blue Dragon Egg here, I have a Volt Turret here, and I have Painter of Winds. And Blue Dragon Egg and Volt Turret are the two cards in the game that have an ability called Static Field, which does damage to anything that uses a ranged attack against it, and that includes a hero. And since Carr and Anasi, for that matter, have area damage, if you have several of these Static Field cards out at once, they basically deal themselves a whole bunch of damage. And if you can spam the field with a bunch of them, they will more or less kill themselves. The trick is staying alive while that happens. Painter of Winds is a great card to have because she gives all of your team Windshield, which actually reduces the damage done by either Car or Anasi because those are ranged attacks, and this gives you defense against ranged attacks. So if you actually have Windshield sitting on top of one of these static field cards, what ends up happening is they still do their retaliation damage, but they don't take as much damage, so they last longer. And then I have
Oh, that's
Right. I
interesting.
actually forgot to mention over here on the right, I also have Shadow Spinner, which is a very important card because Shadow Spinner has the ability Acid Blood, which is currently a unique ability that makes him completely immune to poison and corrosion. I know it says in the effect there that it only is immune to poison, but in reality, it's immune to both. And the reason there's confusion in the community right now is because there are certain types of corrosion that are still working against it. So the assumption is that the text is correct. But in fact, acid blood is immunity to poison and corrosion. So it's a very effective card against Car, even though it's not that strong a card.
But I mean, there's no ability for to be corroded on that card, is there? So what is there a
Acid blood
point
itself,
for
but
it?
because it's immune to corrosion,
Yeah.
it's also immune to corrosion damage. So Car doesn't deal damage to this card. That's the
Oh,
real
oh,
exactly.
wow. Oh,
It's
that's
quite
that's
strong.
I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
and the Queen
Okay.
Huloth's in here. Queen Huloth is a great card. It paralyzes things. There's two reasons for Queen Huloth being in this deck. First of all, paralyzing things and delaying them is extremely useful when your tactic is to counter the enemy hero directly with Static Field because you want him to take as many turns as possible while you survive. So obviously, paralysis is a great survival tool. But also, her Battle Song increases the attack of pretty much the only other card that exists in the deck with attack power, which is Shadow Spinner. And Shadow Spinner is a card that has Drain. Drain deals the damage that it has in attack power and then drains that damage back. So a card with Drain that has high attack power is very strong and stays on the field. So one way to stop Carr is to get a bunch of powered up
Grotesque.
Shadow Spinners.
Nerf.
Yeah, that's right. Grotesque is a pretty good card. So anyway, enough talk. Let's see this in action.
George, one question while you start that
Yeah.
up. From Keelar Monkey in chat. What do the initials mean in the swag? AS, BS, CS, AB, AC, BC.
Those are off to the right. Sure. You know what? I'll open that and explain it to you. So this is the card scoring tab here, where all the different aspects of a card are tabulated in order for us to determine what we think the card strength is. And I say we, it's really me. I mean, I run this thing. This is not official from Stormores per se. And so over here to the right, I don't know if it's going to appear on my screen because of the way this is set up, screen cap, but you see there's a bunch of red columns. Those are all talking about synergy. And synergy is important because it basically determines whether a card is effective given its skills. So, for example, you were talking about Grotesque. Let's look up Grotesque here. It's the third one down, the third most powerful card in the game. It scores very, very highly. You won't be able to see this. It's off to the right of the screen cap, but it scores very, very highly in synergy. Why is that? Because it has Frenzy and Drain. Frenzy increases its attack power every turn, and Drain is more effective the more attack power it has. So obviously, in addition to being a good card, it has a very high synergy score, which increases its overall rank, and that explains why it's third on the list. Similarly, Crusher of Shields is second on the list because Crusher of Shields has Pierce as well as very high attack power, and Pierce is more effective with very high attack power, so it has a high synergy score as well. Specifically, the AC, AB, BC, AS, BS, CS, those are individual calculations of synergy. A, B, and C are the three skills of the creature. So AB would be synergy between skill A and skill B. AC would be synergy between skill A and skill C, and so on. S implies stats. So AS is synergy between skill A and the creature's statistics. BS, skill B and the creature's statistics, so on and so forth. Hopefully that clears that up. Anyway, let's get back to the game here.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Apparently, there are quite a few spreadsheet nerds in the chat, so very
I like
helpful.
to think of myself as a spreadsheet nerd, so kudos to you guys. So let's run a couple of anti-car battles here, and then after we do that, maybe we'll do some more trivia. So my car deck's name is called the Carburetor. The Carburetor. Anyone going to laugh? Okay. Anyway, so thank you for being a good sideman. I appreciate that. I was about to fire you and hire Kevin Eubanks. Anyway, so Illidan here. That's a joke from people who used to watch Jay Leno 10 years ago, but never mind. Let's see if this is effective. Keeping in mind that Carr is very strong and hard to counter in general. But as you can see, because Luther is putting a shield up on this Dragon Egg, the opponent is still able to hit it while it's a Dragon Egg and not actually deal damage to it because of the shield, because of the Aegis, and still take damage. Incidentally, he has an Alara out, this Constructor Alara that weakens your cards, and that's pretty much the number one way to beat my Shadow Spinners, which is very annoying. So, unfortunately, that may not bode well for me. But so far, so good. It's fairly evenly matched. Freaking Crusher of Shields, I swear, man. That card's too strong. I think I'm going to lose this one. No counter is perfect. Anyway, you can make this counter using the same principles better. And the way you would do that is you would have more Volt turrets. I don't actually own as many. And have slightly more together deck. Maybe take out some of the things like the Queen Huloths that you don't really need. Let's try fighting this guy. See if we have better luck. So what's on your mind, JP? Let's fill this silence with something interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just thinking that it's interesting. Sometimes I do really well against some heroes, and then I just do completely poorly against other ones, and which leads me to believe that, well, either, some guys just have better decks than others, but also there's quite a bit of luck involved in terms of your initial spread and the kind of the synergy with which some creatures come out. I mean, I find that sometimes I get like an amazing opener where like maybe three or four cards will come into the field at the same time, and if that happens, it can really make a big difference versus the creatures coming out one at a time and
Yeah.
then just kind of getting
Yeah,
picked
it's
off.
interesting that, one of the qualities of Storm Wars is that you can use an unlimited number of the same card. That's kind of a deck building quality that doesn't exist in a lot of card games. You can see that I won that and it wasn't close, by the way, and I did use a singularity early on. What I was going to say, though, is that because you can use many copies of the same card, essentially, and I'm going to fight Luther with my anti-Luther deck here in the background just to show that to you again. Essentially, you sometimes will have a deck build where you have all of the same card in your deck, and that's not bad. But the funny thing about that is because they all have the same countdown, you're consistently getting only one card into play per turn, and that's actually much easier to lock down than what you're saying when you have bunches of cards enter play at the same time and kind of shake up the battlefield. So in some strange way, it can be
Yeah,
a
yeah.
disadvantage.
Well, I mean, I definitely have a feeling that there is such a thing as kind of board control,
Yeah.
and once you get it, it's really hard for the opponent to get it back unless he gets again like a really good spread all at the same
Hmm.
time, where and which is really a luck factor right there. So
Okay.
it seems to me luck is definitely a factor.
Absolutely. And just how fast you start and all that kind of stuff. Now, I know I promised you guys trivia, and we're going to do that with a gem prize immediately after this, but I want to show you one other thing. This is one more deck that I have that is a very versatile deck that I like using a lot, and I call it my Zoo Rush deck. I use Zoo in here, and I use fast cards. And I use,
Wait, George, I'm going to
please
interrupt you
do.
real quick because one of the questions in chat is, is like a one size fits all deck a pipe dream? And I'll rephrase that question. Is there like one deck that can beat most other decks? And if there was, you'd logically want that to be your defense deck that you set as defense. So, what are your thoughts on
Okay,
that?
so there's a lot to that question. First of all, offense and defense are very different in this game. Defense is different because you don't it's static. It sits there, and the attacker gets to see what your hero is before he chooses the attack deck. And as we said, you're going to choose a different deck based on the defending hero. So there's always an advantage to the attacker. And by the way, that's a very good thing. That's a very, very good thing in game design because it empowers the player who's actually playing against you're inactive when your defense deck is working, and it in general increases win percentages. Games are more fun when people win more often. So that being said, yes, there are some decks that are more versatile than others. The one that I'm using now is a very good example of that. But the reality is that you're always going to be at a disadvantage as a defender, and you shouldn't expect to have a deck that beats everyone. If you want to have the best kind of defense deck, often the best way to do that is to choose a deck which is pretty versatile, has a lot of different cards in it, but conversely is a very bad deck for attacking because that's exactly not the kind of deck you use to attack. Usually, to attack, you use a polar deck that focuses specifically on one weakness of the opponent. I usually have 10 decks built at any time. So I also advise new players that's a good way to spend some of your extra gems that you get early on. Get yourself deck slots. Uh, this is a good example of a versatile
Right.
deck. I have used it as my defense deck before. I like Luther at the moment as a defender because his skill is so versatile, his Aegis skill. Um, and I just throw in average cards to that deck basically to support it. This I call my Zoo Rush deck. It's very, very fast. It uses a lot of strong cards, and it uses a few things like Fire Elemental, which is not necessarily a strong card, but it is immune to fire, and that's what makes it really good against Zoo. So I use the Zoo deck to counter Zoo a lot of the time, frankly. I also use it against heroes that are very weak against speed, like Viona. And I just saw a Viona deck in the arena, so I want to show you how this works. Anyway, you can quickly peruse this deck and just see what kind of cards are in it. I have my best cards in this deck that are fast, so I have all my little fast legends here. I don't have my slow legends. I don't have my Elder Dragons because they're too slow for this deck. You'll see the slowest card in this deck is Speed 6, and I only have a few of them. I have a couple of Huloths here, and I have a Gemini Imp, which, even though it's Speed 6, it's 2 cards, basically.
Gemini
Yeah.
imps. One of the questions in the chat is how do you
An
counter
Imp deck?
an imp?
This deck
Yeah.
counters an imp deck pretty decently. It's not the best counter for an imp deck, but it counters an imp deck pretty decently. If we find an imp deck, I will show you my methodology for countering it. That might be one right there, actually. But let's start with.
Sorry, I was on mute. Chances are the zoo decks that you'll find around 1700 to 2000 are
I
probably
would say
imp
that Min
decks.
probably has
Am
one.
I
Yeah, you
right?
know what? Let's just try this. Why not? It's not exactly formulated to fight Min's deck, probably if it's an imp deck, but let's try it anyway. This is my Zoo Rush here. I do have a trivia question prepared, by the way. I think that this trivia question we're going to have to do something a little special, JP. I think that for the first person to get this trivia question right, I'm going to give them 40 gems, which is pretty decent, I would say. And then I would say for the next 3 people after that, so we give to 4 total people, let's give each of those people 20 gems so that we have a few more prizes.
Oh wow, that's really
Hey man, it's
good.
100 total gems. What can I say? As you can see, that deck was pretty effective. It may have been a good draw, but just the pressure of having a rush. Zoo is a hero whose main ability is that she summons more cards per turn than the average hero, so she feeds a rush really well. That wasn't an imp deck, but you could see that that worked. Oh, I won the arena chest. That means I won 5 times in the arena recently. In any event,
Apparently you played Min's deck.
is he in the
So
chat?
yeah, he's in the
Sorry about that.
chat. He's like, "Oops, my deck."
In any event, okay, let's do the trivia question. Are you ready for this? The
All right, so just to recap, first person gets 40 gems.
next three,
The
next
other
three
three get
get 20
20.
each. 4 prizes. Here comes the
Okay.
trivia question. It's gems. I may ask another trivia question at the end of the chat, even though I don't promise that. And the only reason I just said that is so that nobody just leaves after the trivia question. We're only going to be on another
So
5 minutes
wait,
anyway.
George, because this is a high priced one, we should you should probably type it into the Twitch chat. Are you able to do? Oh no, you can't
You
do
want me
that.
to type it into the Twitch chat? No, no, no. I'm just going to announce
All
it.
right,
Just you mute yourself
you're
so
just
there's
gonna
no
announce it.
buzz.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so the trivia question is as follows. Type into the chat the answer to this question. What is the only cavalry unit in the Spider People faction? Go. And you can turn yourself back on, JP.
Okay, but I'm not talking.
Well, that's all right. We'll just hear you go me the whole time. Incidentally, I'm going to use a Merheen deck. Merheen is a healing hero to attack a Gorm deck, who is a hero that sets people on fire. So you can see one other counter. I'll show you my Mer deck in a moment after this battle. Do we have people answering the question? The answer was Spider
Yep.
Rider.
All right. So apparently, Space Lizard 420, first
My
place.
goodness, I think he's won a different prize as
Then
well. Congrats, sir.
and then
In,
Infallibi.
infallible. It's a joke on the word
Okay,
infallible.
Infallible.
Infallible, but never mind.
Okay. Infallibi
That's
gets
not how
the
you pronounce it.
second. Nabosi third. Captain Thunder
Congrats,
fourth.
guys.
So those
The way
are
this is gonna work is we're gonna take those things down. We're making notes, and then I will. I think I know what your accounts are, but you can also tell us what your Storm Wars accounts are related to your name, and we'll make sure that you get those prizes. We'll probably hand them out today. I just have to basically tell Storm to do it, and because he hasn't given me that power directly yet, and we'll have those on your account today, if not today, tomorrow. But thanks for playing. As you can see, I won yet another battle. Yay! Um, that time I used a Merheen deck against Gorm. I will jump into my army screen to show you my Merheen deck. My Merheen deck is very different from a lot of top players' Merheen decks because I use slow cards in my Merheen deck, and most people think you need fast cards. Here's my thinking. I use Merheen specifically when she counters area of effect uh, debuff type heroes like Gorm, sometimes a Nazi or Carr. And because of that, I don't actually need to ever play her against a very fast hero in a rush or I would lose. So, and I don't use her on defense or then somebody would rush me and I would lose. So I'm perfectly happy using a lot of slow cards like Elder Shorelaw
Oh, that's
and
nice.
Rampaging Saurian.
I should
Well,
try
it depends
that.
how
I
you
should try
use your
that.
Merheen deck. Another reason that slow cards are good in a Merheen deck is because they tend to be very durable. And if you add to that durability the fact that she heals them every round, they sometimes become unbeatable. So, Grotesque, Rampaging Saurians, any of the Elder Dragons, things like that. Cards with shield like Odysseus. These are very good cards in my opinion in a Marine deck. So you can see the distribution I have here. It's also very heavily favoring the Atlantean faction. I have some Paladins in there, which I might not otherwise have, a whole bunch of Solons and so on, simply because they all get an extra hit point with Marine because there is a morale bonus when you use a
Right,
unit from the
right.
same faction. So anyhow, that's pretty much.
Well, I should try that. What's your advice if you don't have legendaries?
You can use the epic versions of the same cards, and you can use cards that have a similar makeup. Don't forget that you can always use the swag, the Storm Wars Analytics guide that we looked at earlier. The actual shorthand for that should be tinyurl.com/swag hyphen public. JP, maybe you can type that into the Twitch chat. Um,
Somebody already linked
Oh,
it.
wonderful. Thanks, guys. Yeah,
Well,
so that swag document will let you know if you only have rares and uncommons if you're a new player, which cards are generally stronger than others, but really just ask in chat. Let's do one more example of a deck that I have. I'm going to use.
well, one thing that people are curious, and maybe we can close on
Sure.
this, is to know something about the new heroes that you mentioned. Maybe you
I
can
will definitely, I will
spoil
definitely,
some
I will
abilities or
definitely talk to you
give us
about a
some
new
hints.
hero in just a second. So yes, we'll close with that. Right before we do that, I'm just going to show you one more deck type. This is, you were asking about Kiri and how fast she can be, right, JP?
I
So
was indeed.
Kiri is an orc who is very strong when she uses beasts because she buffs them every turn. This is my Kiri deck. It's a wolf pack deck. You can see there's only 3 types of cards in here. I have some wolf scouts, some timber wolves, and some wolf riders. And Kiri's going to buff them every single turn. They're all very fast. I use this rush deck basically against very slow opponents like Merheen decks. I sometimes use them to outrush opponents who are using rush decks with Malik, but that's pretty risky. So let's see if I can
Yeah, I
beat
mean,
up
my
a
my my
random
thinking was
Merheen deck
that
with it.
against heroes that don't do direct damage, Kiri Rush is pretty good. So against Mirin, it wins like 90% of the
Yes,
time.
although look at this. This is a problem. The first card out is a really fast one. So it implies that maybe this person's using a fast deck, which is kind of the exact way that you beat you beat a Wolf Rush, especially with Merheen. So let's see. Maybe I'll get lucky and Kiri will put the armored ability on a couple of my cards, and that will really help me survive. Actually, that's exactly what happened. It looks like I'm pretty well winning. As you can see, wolf packs can overwhelm pretty quickly. So there we go. Okay. All right, guys. So you want a spoiler, do you? JP, why don't you amuse people with your chatter, and I will grab a
Oh
spoiler.
god, I keep forgetting I'm muted. You could tell us a
I
little
can
bit,
tell you
right?
a little bit. Actually, what I'm going to do is even better than that. I'm going to show you a preview. You can see into my computer here. Talk amongst yourselves. JP, say
Well,
something useful.
I
Oh, you know what? It's not
I
there.
love my Kiri deck too.
I didn't prepare this. Hold on. That's JP up close.
No, I'll tell you what. My question is, while you get that up and so that we can see it, is how easy or difficult is it going to be to acquire said new
They're all going to be
heroes?
premium heroes, fellows. They're all going to be premium heroes. Okay. Now, I want to show you 2 things. We're going to open this in a new tab. I need to actually open Safari for this. So this is a preview of one of the heroes that's coming. This is going to be the High Elf hero. Yeah,
Cool.
his name is Aubren, Aubren. How do you like that card art right there?
Well, I'll let you know in about 20 seconds.
Oh, yeah? It says Pouncer. It's not actually a Pouncer, obviously. So that's our hero Aubren. That's a rough of the art. He is an elf who uses earth magic, as you can probably tell, and he has an ability called Sandstorm,
Okay.
which is going to be a little bit like Sedalis in that it attacks all enemies. but it is different from Sedalis in two major ways. First of all, it's going to use a ranged attack, so it's not going to be magical, and it is going to hit harder based on how fast its opponents are. So it's actually going to hit fast creatures hard. So you can basically interpret this as
Oh
a
wow.
hard counter to very, very low CD cards. So think about how that's going to affect the metagame. Keeping in mind,
You mean like imps?
really anything fast. And this is a hero, so he's going to be using it every turn. So that's a guy to think about. I actually think the art's fantastic. And I will show you one other pretty neat hero here. Talk amongst yourselves. I want to want to decide whom to show you. Let's see. What do you guys want to see? Maybe you can tell me in the chat. Name the faction of the hero that you'd like to see. I'll show you
Okay,
one. I'll show
well,
you one other hero. This is the high elf. So do you want to see the Atlantean, the dark elf, the orc, the nameless horde,
uh, uh,
or the spider people
let's
card?
see the. I vote for Atlantean just because of my
Yes, you are
heritage.
Greek. Nobody got that trivia question the other day. Maybe we should have had that be the trivia question. Uh, do you guys have any ideas on what kind of faction you want to see? JP, do you see any chatter in the Twitch there?
Looks like a lot of people want. Oh my God, it's all split.
It's all split.
It's split. One.
Choose
Well, dark
choose
elf
some.
is dark elf is
Dark
the
elf is the predominant
yeah,
choice.
dark elf.
Okay, let me just make sure I don't open the wrong one and show you something by accident. Uh, I think it's this. If it's not, you're going to see something for free. New window. All guys, you could probably all figure out what my password is based on the typing speed, right? I hope not.
No.
Did I just open the same one? Is that for serious? Oh my god, that was dumb. I thought that.
Good is dumb.
Thank you, Lord Helmet. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the
when
delay.
will when will then be now?
Oh, brother. Yeah, Spaceball is one of the all-time classics. Goodness gracious, I can't believe this
Yeah, I
nonsense.
mean it's a classic. It really
Well, I
is.
don't know why that. Oh, you know what? I just misread the message. All right, here it comes. Here we go. Now this dark elf hero we're about to look at is named Hylok, Hylok, possibly Hylokk. He's not a pouncer. There we go. And this guy he's pretty neat.
George, is your password 12345?
One, two,
Just be honest.
five. And this guy he's pretty cool. He's basically like an advanced version of a prismatic mage. So he's going to hit all your opponents with all kinds of status affecting abilities. He's going to hit several of them. He's going to have a magic attack, and he is also going to have remedy, which is a skill that targets one of your own creatures and basically cures it of any debuff. So he is going to have a debuff ability, or a curing of debuff ability every round, which will be pretty useful against, I think, Carr and Anasi and so on. But don't forget, it only works on one of your creatures, so obviously it's only so effective. So there you go. There's Hylok.
Hashtag not a pouncer.
Is hashtag not a bouncer is correct. Anyhow, guys, that's our live stream. That's going to wrap it up. And
By the way, I really like that second artwork. That
oh, the
looks
art's so
amazing.
fantastic, guys. The art for the other four is also great, and I can't wait to share those with you. If the next live stream happens before the heroes are released, I will definitely spoil one or two more for you, and hope you guys are excited. I don't mean to be smarty pants, but I got to tell you that the four we didn't mention are all very cool. The mechanics are all very cool. Hylock is probably the only one that the mechanics are really something we've seen before. The other four that you haven't heard yet are all pretty new mechanics as well. So including obviously Auburn, who has that CD varying damage. So that's our stream for today. If you guys would like, I will post the actual deck lists that I revealed somewhere, maybe in the forums, so that you can look at them more closely. Obviously, I'd be happy to chat with you about that or generally give advice on how to combat heroes. JP, do you have anything to add?
No, there's one last question from Captain
Please
Thunderwalker,
ask.
which is, are there any plans on making it clear which abilities cannot be corroded? I mean, that seems just
That's
like
a great question, and that has been on my short list for some time now. That's going to be a graphical upgrade more than anything else, probably, and it's a little bit tricky because there's a lot to handle there. But it is something that we are looking at, and thank you for asking that. Just the fact of asking it expedites it. So I'll definitely talk to Storm about that again next time we go over graphics. Just remember that because he's so spread so thin, it actually takes more of his time when he has to focus on different types of things at the same time. Like, for example, if he has to look at graphics at the same time as mechanics. So that's the only reason it hasn't already happened, honestly. So there's like a long list of graphical things, and when we do that, I'm sure that'll be on the list. But you're right that it's not clear. The only thing I'll say about it that may help you is if something seems like it would be inherent or inherent related to attack, uh, like Vanguard or like Wall as an ability, it's probably not corrodable. Everything else probably should be. Anyway.
okay.
All right.
That's you answered it. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us.
As always.
We'll archive the stream for future viewing and
And we will
reference
delete the
since
stream where we
George is
said
giving away
testing
all
one,
the
two, three
secrets.
on the sound. Now I will drink a sip of coffee without choking.
Okay.
Cold. And thanks again for watching. We'll do future streams. The more viewers that we get and the more followers that we get, the more prizes we will give out. And the prizes might be bigger, and the prizes might be things like legendary cards. So do stay tuned. We hope to see you soon. Peace.
Peace.